Donald Trump is pursuing controversial foreign policies, from control of the Panama Canal to the idea of buying Greenland. Is he really protecting national interests, or is he just creating conflict to maintain political power? In early 2025, Donald Trump publicly announced plans to regain control of the Panama Canal, an 80-kilometer-long artery that hosts more than 14,000 ships each year, accounting for more than 5% of total global maritime trade. Trump criticized the high fees American ships must pay to pass through the canal, saying these fees are unfair and hurt the American economy, especially when the United States is facing financial challenges. He also took aim at CK Hutchison Holdings, a Hong Kong-based group that currently operates 2 strategic ports at either end of the canal, accusing it of weakening U.S. trade security and defense. To protect national interests, the Trump administration has asked the Pentagon to consider options to ensure long-term U.S. access to the canal, including technical assistance, military cooperation, and measures to protect the canal's neutrality. However, the response from the Panamanian government was unequivocal. The Panama Canal is a national asset, belongs to the people of Panama, and will never change. Trump's intervention in this issue has clearly faced strong opposition from the Panamanian government, and has also created concerns about negative impacts on the relationship between the two countries. Under increasing pressure from Washington, Panama quickly took strategic steps.
China's running the Panama Canal. That was not given to China, that was given to Panama foolishly, but they violated the agreement and we're going to take it back.
Just weeks after Trump's announcement, Panama withdrew from China's Belt and Road Initiative, marking an important change in foreign policy direction.
El canal es operado por nuestro país y así seguirá siendo. Yo no creo que haya habido discrepancia en eso.
At the same time, the Panamanian government canceled a long-term port concession agreement with CK Hutchison Holdings, a contract that extended the group's control for another 25 years, which was renewed in 2021. These decisions represent a significant adjustment in the economic policy of Panama, a country that does not have a military and uses the US dollar as its official currency, making it deeply dependent on international trade. Not long after the contract with CK Hutchison was terminated, a consortium led by BlackRock announced a $22.8 billion takeover of the port operations, a development that raises questions about the coordination between US policy and private capital flows. Beijing has yet to issue an official response, but China, as the second largest user of the Panama Canal, will certainly not stand aside. The country continues to maintain a strong presence in Latin America through investments in mining, infrastructure, and trade. Instead of direct confrontation, China is pursuing a long-term strategy, expanding relations with regional powers such as Brazil, Nicaragua, and Argentina, and diversifying trade routes through the Arctic and Africa in an effort to reduce dependence on routes controlled by the United States. This competition did not take place on the battlefield but bore all the signs of a modern power struggle. The US uses trade, tariffs, and financial investment to reassert its position, while China quietly expands its influence. Panama, caught between two giants, is trying to keep the balance without compromising national sovereignty. As the global conflicts reshape trade routes, the Panama Canal has once again become a hot spot, where the US and China challenge each other without resorting to force. But what will happen next? Will Beijing respond in an unexpected way? Will Panama continue to maintain a neutral position or lean to one side? This story could change the world trade order forever. Donald Trump has put forward a controversial proposal to buy Greenland from Denmark, on the grounds that the United States could protect the island from Russian and Chinese influence. However, there are no surveys or evidence that the people of Greenland want this. Experts considered this a diversionary tactic rather than a truly serious plan, and the results were counterproductive. Not only does Greenland reject Trump's ambitions, but Canada also publicly rejects the idea of merging with the US. The Premier of Ontario bluntly stated that Canada is not for sale and will never become the 51st state. In fact, Canada is one of the most developed countries in the world, with a strong economy, comprehensive social policies, and universal health care, things that make it markedly different from the United States. Despite having a huge trade relationship with the US, worth up to $793 billion USD per year. Canadians still firmly maintain their national identity. A survey by the Angus Reid Institute found that 89% of Canadians oppose the idea of merger, mainly due to differences over economic policy, gun control, and the social safety net. So why is Trump pursuing this idea? Many analysts believe that this is simply a political trick to distract public opinion. When Trump made his proposal to buy Greenland in 2019, the United States was facing a trade war with China, a volatile stock market, and concerns about rising unemployment. A shocking statement about territorial expansion could help Trump divert media attention from internal problems. But instead of winning support, Trump angered his allies. Denmark bluntly called the idea absurd, while Canadian politicians considered it delusional. The international community began to question America's true strategy. The backlash from financial markets reinforced the negative impact of these statements. In just one day, Dow Jones dropped more than 1,400 points, erasing the growth from the beginning of the year.
Not a lot of positive that you can take away from today's trading session, other than we finished off the absolute lows of today's session. All right.
Large corporations suffered heavy losses. Tesla lost 5.7%. Nvidia plunged 6.1%. JP Morgan fell 5.9%. The S&P 500 also broke its 200-day moving average, causing a wave of selling on Wall Street. Experts warn that if Trump continues with unpredictable policies, the U.S. could face a recession by the end of 2025, forcing the Federal Reserve to reduce interest rates sooner than expected to avoid a deeper crisis. Given this situation, investors are advised to keep cash reserves, avoid large investments in technology and finance, and instead focus on energy and defense stock sectors that can benefit from geopolitical instability. In addition, closely monitor the Federal Reserve's moves to determine a reasonable investment strategy. International tensions are escalating. The U.S. economy is at risk of stagflation, and even the Trump administration is in turmoil as allies protest and legal troubles surround it. Trump's leadership is being tested like never before. The Chinese government has officially increased its defense budget by 7.2%, making it clear that it is preparing for a long-term confrontation amid rising international tensions. At the same time, the trade relationship between Canada and the United States is under unprecedented strain. Canada responded strongly to Trump's policies by imposing retaliatory tariffs of 25% on nearly $30 billion worth of American goods, impacting many industries such as steel, aluminum, computers, sports equipment, and cast iron. The statement from the Canadian government is clear: we will not stand idly by while America imposes unfair policies on our economy. These measures are not the first time Canada has responded to U.S. tariff decisions, but this time the trade war between the two countries has escalated to a more serious level than ever before. The situation has become so bad that experts warn that relations between the two countries are at their worst point in modern history. Meanwhile, the U.S. economy is entering a dangerous situation. Experts predict that the United States could face a mild recession by the end of 2025, warning of the risk of stagflation, a nightmare scenario for the economy. The cost of living is escalating, with gas and food prices constantly rising, making life more difficult for millions of Americans. The housing market is also becoming inaccessible for many families. As for Trump, while the American people are struggling with the basic problems in life, he is focusing on selling hats and his election campaign, instead of coming up with economic recovery plans. This makes many people question his leadership ability when the country faces a crisis. Furthermore, a major legal defeat added fuel to the fire when the Supreme Court ordered Trump to return $2 billion in foreign aid funds that he tried to withhold for personal political gain. The current situation shows that the U.S. economy is facing huge challenges, and if the trade war with Canada continues to escalate, both economies will suffer many negative impacts. Economists warn that a long-term trade war would not only harm manufacturing but also push the U.S. economy into recession. Trump continues to bet on risky decisions, causing tensions with allies and pushing the U.S. into recession. Does America First really serve the national interest, or is it just a political tactic?